So without further ado, let me welcome up Tati Lindenberg, who's the Chief Brand Officer, Dirt is Good, Unilever, and Sam Shaver, who's the Managing Partner of Think Beyond. Over to you guys. Big round of applause, please. Tati and Sam, thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everyone. Great to be here. It's my first Mad Fest, so I'm getting used to it. I think you're pretty much a veteran, aren't you? Oh, you're just a second. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing better than I am. But so look, today, we're talking about where passion meets purpose, and at Think Beyond, we talk about growth through purpose, and we fundamentally believe that sport acts as this platform and this beautiful thing that can act as both a platform for brand growth, but also fundamentally for social change. And the wonderful thing about it is that it can really do both of those things, and one can really feed the other. Thanks. So it's great to have Tati here. Dirt is Good is a brand that's kind of really lived and breathed purpose for years. It's embedded in your name, it's embedded in kind of who you are. So really excited to get your thoughts. I guess let's start relatively big picture. Brand purpose has had probably a bit of a rough ride over the last 18 months, couple of years. But for you, kind of, where are we on that journey, and how does it play a role for DIG in sort of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve?
Okay, here we go. First of all, thank you all for being here, and Sam for inviting me to come over. For the ones who do not know what Dirt is Good is, it's a laundry detergent brand, Persil in the UK, Omo in the vast majority of markets, Surf Excel in India. So just a caveat, because I don't want you to go through like 30 minutes of what the hell she's talking about. So that said, Dirt is Good, as you mentioned, Sam, has been created as a brand idea and an innovation platform 20 years ago, and it is embedded in purpose. The name in itself is a belief that when people go outside and get stuck in, and actually this idea that getting dirty is good, physically, metaphorically, and physiologically as well. And you were right to say that over this past 20 years, we have moments that purpose was considered good, moments in which we should not even use the word purpose, and then internally I would say point of view, but it's pretty much the same thing. So I think it has been ups and downs, but the reality is, regardless of how we name it, purpose, point of view, belief, we do know at Unilever, and we have a lot of data points showing that purposeful brands can drive both growth and impact. And when I say growth, we're talking about commercial performance, and at the same time shift cultural conversations. So it's something that, despite the ups and downs in the market, Unilever stands for, and something that we will keep pushing on for the foreseeable future.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that's one of the key things here is longevity. You know, the COVID, we couldn't move for brands saying, I've got a new purpose, I've got this, that, and the other. But actually, that longevity piece really means it's embedded in consumers' minds as well, in terms of who you are and what you're doing.
True. I think during COVID specifically, we all have seen a number of different brands, of course, suddenly becoming purposeful. But I think the point about purpose, which is really relevant, we do all know that it helps to differentiate the brands. It helps with brand loyalty. As I've mentioned, it drives commercial success. But there is one aspect, which is it does also attract talent. I can see, for instance, even within my team, and I'm talking about teams from different countries, the moment that you have a brand that stands for something, it's also easier to have people coming on board and working on the brand, and even the quality of the work, partners or employees become better and better because people just feel that they want to be part of it.
And from it, just diving into that, because that's really interesting, that internal piece, is there specific areas of the brand that you think purpose kind of enables growth on? So is there sort of brand, are you talking about brand power, for example? Have you got down to that level in terms of measuring it, or is it just a general thing that you can see it sort of drives all general areas?
No, we've measured it, and we measured quite systematically. So I think, as with many brands, we obviously look at brand power, but there is a component of brand power for us that it's almost what we can say as translated a translation of purpose, which is brand meaningful. So we always track and try to understand if the brand meaningful or what the brand means to consumers is increasing or decreasing. And we know that correlates with market share. We also track brand difference, but this is more driven by innovation. So I always used to say that the perfect combination of any comms model is when we have innovations to drive brand difference, and at the same time we have purpose, a point of view or belief to drive brand meaningful.
Amazing. So look, we're on the sports stage. We should talk about sport, otherwise I'll get in trouble. You relatively recently took the brand into sport. Can you just sort of touch upon what was that decision-making process to go into sport? What was the sort of driving force behind it?
So for the ones, and I will not embarrass anyone asking who remembers like an ad from Persil for 15, 20 years ago. But at the beginning of Dirt is Good and Persil, we used to say that the kids were in the backyard because we used to show Dirt is Good through the lens of creativity. So we would literally show kids painting, kids like trying to do some ingenious things like in the backyard. And with time, we then moved the kids from the backyard to the forest, metaphorically, of course. And then the kids, we were then showing that through the process of getting dirty, kids could help making this world a better planet. And we would show potentially like kids collecting plastic, planting trees. We also have a phase that we call the collective phase, where we would show the impact of getting dirty or getting stuck into society. And then more recently, we realized that we needed to drive more performance. And this was, I've mentioned the point on brand difference and brand meaningful. And what we've noticed is our purpose and point of view needed to come with more energy, needed to come with more modernity. And it's not a coincidence that we looked at sport. Everybody is, MadFest included. So we then thought that it would be a good idea to then move the kids from the backyard to the forest, from the forest to the pitch. And it helped. Over the last 18 months, 2 years, we've been working and contextualizing our campaigns into the world of sports, and we can see the same drivers that I was talking about, brand meaningful, brand difference, and then the more commercial drives such as penetration and market share increasing.
And you know, one of the things about sport clearly is a passion point, and you have, I think it's fair to say, probably shifted a little bit away from not only purely product marketing messages, but actually that emotive storytelling. You did the autograph with Bukayo, and again, what was the sort of thinking in terms of, was that to try and tap into that emotion that sport brings and the opportunity to kind of create a more emotional connection with the brand?
Definitely. My key concern when going to the world of sport is I knew it was the right thing for the brand, but I was deeply scared about doing the move because there are so many brands working on the same area. And I could obviously have taken the decision to just copy what the big players do, like Nike or Adidas, but we wanted to find a point of view that could be exclusively Dirt is Good. And historically, the brand always had these very emotional films, and films that, as we used to say, would make people cry. So we wanted, when we did the autograph, for the ones who haven't seen it, is a film with a campaign with Bukayo Saka. Again, I'm going to talk about Arsenal. I saw that Arsenal was quoted a few times in the last session. But it is a film with Bukayo Saka. Basically, tell the story of a little boy who manages to get his Arsenal jersey signed by Saka. He goes back home and his father accidentally washes that shirt with Persil, of course, because we remove even ink stains. And
so on brand, it's extraordinary.
Of course. And then after that, that act of washing creates a bit of a family drama. And this little boy then goes around North London trying to find Bukayo Saka again and get another shirt signed by Saka. And of course, at the end, he meets Saka, almost like a fairy tale in the middle of a street. But the point on that story is, I can only tell this story, and that's why I purposefully told you all, if I refer to the laundry moment. the story has no tension or it doesn't stand if I don't say, and the shirt was accidentally washed. And this is what we've been trying to do, Sam, which is to try to find, regardless if more emotional, some stories are more emotional, some campaigns are a bit less, but the idea is to make sure that laundry and dirt and stains are embedded in the story. Otherwise, I would just be another player.
Yeah. And that brings us neatly onto Arsenal and the work you've done with them. So let's start with, there are lots of clubs you could have gone and partnered with. Why did you choose Arsenal?
Okay, here we go. There were a few reasons. First, there was one pragmatic reason. We wanted, let me tell you, I think it's important if I go through the entire thought process. We knew we wanted sport, and then we were thinking, okay, but which sport? Then we chose football because of the viewership and the number of fans all over the world. And in fact, in most of the Dirt is Good countries, football is the #1 sport, except India. But in India, we have partnerships with some cricket teams. So except for India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, we then moved into sport. When we thought about football, then we thought, okay, we want a Premier League club, and we wanted a club based in London. This was simply logistics. It would make it easier for us to make sure that we could take the most out of the hospitality that we have in a partnership such as that one. And then out of the teams based in London, we went and we decided to partner with Arsenal because the values of the club are almost identical to our values. So we actually did a side-by-side comparison with other clubs. And what we've noticed is everything that Arsenal stands for as a brand and as a club is very similar to what we stand for and believe. So that was the ultimate choice.
And then I guess, and that sort of starts to feed into, so the work you've done, Every Stain is part of the game, which extraordinary piece of work. And if you haven't seen it, then you've been probably living under a rock, I think. But what sort of, there's a really interesting point at which you can go, okay, let's tackle this stigma around periods and period stains. And it takes someone brave to go after that and to do that. But it also has to come back to that commercial reality, right? And you have to say, okay, actually, you could create the most emotive campaign that causes everyone to cry, but actually it drives nothing in terms of commercial. So how have you tried to sort of balance? It'd be interesting to hear a little bit about Every Stain as part of the game and how you developed it. But how have you tried to then balance that kind of social change piece with the commercial growth piece, specifically with that campaign?
We have, and we evolved that sort of approach, but we have an approach which is combining what I call the category insight with the cultural or community insight. And in that case, we started by looking at the cultural or community insight, and we found out something that many other brands did so, which is the fact that 6 in 10 girls fear playing due to period stains leaks. So that was the cultural insight. It was out there for brands or foundations to grab and do something about it. But again, if I just do that, it's not credible for a laundry brand. Why would I have to arguably speak about it? Even though, of course, in this case, it's not that women or girls fear playing for other reasons than a stain. So just that in itself was good enough for us, but we wanted to further enhance also, as I've mentioned, the commercial impact. So we also had another insight, which is the fact that around 68% of girls and women, a lot of you included, do not know how to remove period stains. So then it was the perfect combination for us because we had a societal issue, but we have also a laundry one. We needed to teach people how to clean those stains. I, for instance, didn't know how to do it. I've been working Dirt is Good for now. I've been looking after the brand for 5.5 years. I do know for a while, but when I entered the brand, I also did it all wrong. But we then realized that there were these two kind of like spaces for us to operate. And then it made sense for us to just come and create a campaign in which we could tackle both the stigma, but as well as talk about the performance of our products and how to actually clean those stains. So this is sort of the combination that we always try to do. We talk about how we can shift cultural conversations, but also how we can drive commercial performance, hence teaching people about the top performance products.
And I think there's a really interesting piece as well. You did I think I'm right in saying, a version of the campaign in Saudi, which I think is just, again, a fascinating kind of, you talk about culture and cultural nuance. Just touch upon that and how you had to approach that, because I think, it's such a different world in terms of trying to do something similar there.
Now, that's very true. In the UK, imagine that, again, cultural insight, category insight. We found out that in Saudi Arabia, the category insight was the same. It was pretty much 68, 70%. I think in the case of Saudi, it was even higher, nearly 90% actually, of women didn't know how to remove period stains. So the category context was similar, if not heightened in Saudi. However, the context in Saudi from a cultural point of view was not about fear playing. It was the fact that 70% of women feel unable to speak about period stains. So it was one level deeper, and that's why the campaign, instead of showing Arsenal players encouraging and inspiring girls to play without fear of period leaks, we actually created a campaign in which we worked with in henna salons, and we basically communicated the message on how to remove stains and how to encourage women to remain active during the time they have their period through henna. So it was almost like a hidden secret type of campaign. A really, really beautiful one, and one that we did with the utmost respect for the tradition, but also making sure that we would target women and only women so they would feel comfortable. I always used to compare, being Brazilians, that in Brazil, every Saturday you go to the nail salon and there is a lot of gossiping and chatting and conversations. And similarly, in Saudi, they go to the henna salons, and this is also a moment of conversation. So we use that as a media and as a moment in which women could then feel more free to speak about period stains.
And so we've heard about the commercial side of things, from the sort of social side of things and the driving change, and we're obviously not that long after the campaign. So is there something that you, as Tati, would want to see as a result of this campaign change? And if you could say, actually, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, what would you hope? I've heard you talk about legacy and brand legacy as well. What do you hope will change, and how do you think you go about now really driving that social change piece as well?
For both of these campaigns, and I do appreciate that one might happen in 3 years, one might take longer. What I mostly wish is that it stops being a women's issue and it becomes a societal conversation. It's still just one example. Sometimes when I show the campaign to men, a lot of men would say, oh, it doesn't speak to me. And while I understand, it should speak to men as well. So we wanted to make sure that if we're talking about period stains, to be fair, is the second most frequent stain in the whole world. 4 billion people would have that stain every single month in a way or another. So I wanted to make sure that these and every single stain, from the very beginning when Dirt is Good started, moms wouldn't like to see, for instance, kids full of grass and mud. And we shifted the conversation over the last decade, and we can see how now this idea of getting dirty and being good, it's almost like a table stake. People understand. They don't feel that it's as of a paradox as it used to be in the past, but not with every stain. So I believe that the legacy that I want to leave is to make sure that every single stain, that we still have it as a sort of a taboo, that becomes something that we can speak as society and not just like a women's
Amazing.
talk.
We're getting the sign, but I just want to ask one last question. What's next for Dig in Sport?
So we have 3 or 2 maybe key areas, maybe 3. I will just reveal. One is we want to keep working with the Arsenal women's team. I was hearing before about how incredible it is to work with female athletes, and it is. We had a chance in Dirt is Good to work on with both Arsenal men and women, but also women's athletes and men, and I can say that it's extraordinary because there is a lot of collaboration in the process. So that's one. The second one, grassroots football. We did pre-launch a campaign, even here in the same space, called Varzanal, and it's a campaign between Arsenal and grassroots football teams in Brazil, which is called Várzea, the place where they play, hence Varzanal. You're going to see, we're going to launch a doc-series in October, if I remember well. And then the third one, we also wanted to start looking at up-and-coming sports that do not have the same visibility as football. We used football at the beginning because it was our way, almost our entry ticket. But now that we feel more comfortable in this space, we also wanted to start looking at other sports that maybe don't receive the same attention, love, and care.
Amazing. Tati, thank you very much. Great to hear from you, and thank you all.